Welcome to my video on extinction. Today we're exploring one of the most important and sometimes the most dramatic behavior concepts in ABA. This is Ricky the Rat, our slightly annoyed co-host, and yes, today's lesson is about him not getting snacks. So over the next few minutes, we're diving into what extinction really is, why it matters, and how Ricky reacts when reinforcement disappears. Extinction occurs when a behavior that was previously reinforced no longer produces reinforcement. And when the reinforcement disappears, the behavior gradually decreases over time. So here we're going to see Ricky in action. At first, he runs because he's expecting a reward, the cheese. When the reinforcement stops, he works harder to earn that reinforcement back. When the reinforcement does not arrive, he loses motivation and eventually the behavior starts to fade away. No snack, no payoff. Now, let's see how Ricky reacts when extinction actually begins. At first, everything seems normal. He presses the lever just like always. But when the food doesn't appear, Ricky starts to panic. This reaction right here is what we call an extinction burst. It's a temporary increase in the behavior, pressing harder, faster, trying anything to make the reinforcement come back. The behavior doesn't disappear quietly, it gets bigger before it gets better. To help us remember what an extinction burst is, here are a couple of quick mnemonic devices. The first one is my favorite: pop before it stops, meaning that behavior reaches the peak of performance right before it decreases. But both of them remind us that behavior spikes briefly before it starts to go down. So here's our first real life example of extinction, the tapping case. A student begins tapping on the desk, usually to get attention from the teacher or classmates. When the teacher stops responding and no longer provides attention, extinction begins. At first, the tapping gets louder and more frequent. That's the extinction burst. The student is trying harder because the old strategy isn't working anymore. But since no reinforcement is available, the behavior eventually decreases and finally the tapping stops. Our second example shows extinction in relationships. In a healthy relationship, there are lots of reinforcements, dates, calls, affection. But after a breakup, all of that disappears. No replies, no emojis, no affection. Reinforcement stops and extinction begins. And this is where we often see the extinction outburst. The person may send emotional messages or call several times. They might say things like, please just answer me, or we need closure. All of these are sudden increases in behavior because the old behaviors no longer get a response. But once it becomes clear that the reinforcement isn't coming back, those behaviors eventually stop. The person comes down, adjusts, and moves on. And yes, Ricky, humans absolutely have extinction bursts too, drama included. So why talk about extinction? Extinction isn't just an ABA concept, it's a life pattern. It helps explain a lot of our human behavior. Understanding extinction also strengthens emotional regulation. When you expect a burst, you're less likely to be surprised or overwhelmed by it. It also prevents people from giving up too early. A spike in behavior doesn't mean that strategy failed, it's often a sign that it's actually working. And finally, extinction builds patience and resilience. Knowing that behavior gets louder before it gets better helps us stay consistent, calm, and confident. Well, and this is the end. Thanks for watching. Stay consistent, stay patient, and yes, Ricky, you can now have your snack. You've earned it.